This week on the show, we're going to cover eBay's seller update in a little bit more depth. Etsy makes a change in some of their shipping plans, and Whatnot wants you. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 284 of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, bringing you all the reselling news you need to know. We've got the rest of the eBay seller update to go over today. I did a separate episode, middle of last week, that covered the incoming fee increase. We will dive into that just a little bit deeper, and then we'll hit on some of the other things that were also included in that update. Etsy has announced a upcoming change in how shipping can be calculated. So we're going to cover that, a little bit of other reselling news, and then an interesting tidbit from Whatnot. No What Sold segment in this week's episode. I've yet to decide. I will either do that again on Wednesday or we'll just hold them for next week. Since I did it on Wednesday, I just really don't have that much to cover, so that won't be in this episode. There will be timestamps to each particular site's news, so if you only want to know what's going on at Etsy, you can click straight over to that in the show notes and the video description down below. That having been said, let's get into this reselling news.
News updates.
So again, we talked about it at some length in the video that I did the other day, when the eBay seller announcement had leaked a little bit early, and we had some inkling of what some of the changes were going to be in terms of fees over on eBay. Broadly based, it is a fee increase of up to 0.35% in some categories, and it's a kind of an interesting breakdown. So non-store and starter store sellers have one set of new rules, and basic store subscribers and above have a slightly different set. So depending on where you are in the eBay ecosystem, your mileage may vary. I'm not going to cover all of this. I just want to kind of hit some of the high points. There will be a link to these articles in the show notes and the video description down below if you want to go get more details. Most of this, as usual, is from Liz over at Value Added Resource. Thank you very much, Liz, for all the hard work that you do. So if you are a non-store or a starter store, most categories are going to have that 0.35% increase. There are a few exceptions: NFTs, heavy equipment, handbags, coins, and paper money, which excludes bullion, jewelry, watches, comic books, trading cards, collectible card games, no fee increases. Sneakers over $150, also no increase, but under $150, they're going to go from 13.25 to 13.6. So again, there's a handy chart in this article. I encourage you to go look at it and see what the changes actually are, but there are, in most categories, changes to be had. If you scroll on down, basic and above store subscription has a much longer list broken down into a lot more categories. So in this article, they just called out the ones that are not seeing an increase. And again, it's NFTs, heavy equipment, handbags, coins, and paper money without bullion, jewelry, watches, comic books, trading cards, and collectible card games, no fee increase. Same thing with the sneakers, except for basic and above store subscriptions, they go from 12.35 to 12.7. And then there is for bullion, it's increasing 0.15% from 7.35 to 7.5. Let me know if you sell bullion. Do any of my listeners deal in bullion on eBay? Motor parts and accessories are only increasing 0.15% from 11.35 to 11.5. Some subcategories go from 9.35 to 9.5. And again, there's a breakdown of those. All other categories appear to have that increase. Those sellers, of course, are encouraged to view the full details, and there is a link in this article, which will be linked in this video, so that you can go get all the details. So if you're curious about the categories that you sell in and what the fee increase is going to be, you can get the information that you need. I looked for those of my fellow media sellers. It still appears as though media is the most highly fee charged category on eBay. It's now at, I believe it's 15.3%, which is just a crazy amount. And I suppose it's because the general low value of a lot of media items. The only way for eBay to feel like they're making any money is to charge a high fee. But man, oh man, it's a punishing number. Some of the other updates in the seller update: learn more about your buyers, easily identify and engage with repeat customers using our new buyer details feature. What you need to know: if you've ever wondered who your most loyal customers are, with our new buyer details feature, seeing this information, they say, is easier than ever. With a single click, you can view existing buyer details already available to you through their previous purchases, like their location, their purchase history, the total amount spent on past orders, all in one place. You can also quickly access tools to engage with your buyers, helping you create a personalized and positive buying experience. Benefits of all these details: you can get to know your buyers. You can quickly gain insights into their profile, see their picture, their username, and location, all in one spot. You can easily recognize your most loyal customers with visible follower and repeat buyer tags, which is something I've seen on my sales. You'll also get a better understanding of your buyer's purchasing history by viewing all the orders they've placed with you over the past 2 years. You can then enhance your customer service by seamlessly accessing the messaging experience from that interface to respond to any buyer questions, leave feedback to ensure a positive experience. You can also reward loyal customers by sending them, of course, an exclusive coupon or a personalized thank you note. On the topic of feedback, let me know in the chat if you have experiences. I use automated feedback, and for the last month plus, probably 25% of the time, automatic feedback is not working. Not to harp on the thing I've been harping on for a month with basic functionality at eBay not working, but I'm going to harp on it for just a moment. This just started really within the last month, and every day without fail, probably close to a quarter of the transactions that are completed, buyers have paid for the items and they're ready to go, which is my criteria for automatic feedback to be sent. Feedback is not being sent automatically, and I've got to either just skip it or manually go in and do it. Let me know if you're experiencing that. How it works: simply click on the buyer's name from the Orders tab in the Seller Hub to view their details. Their information will show up in a pop-up box similar to the one you see here. There is a picture if you're watching on YouTube. The information will show up, and you can click on all orders to then view a detailed list of the orders they've placed with you. So this is kind of a handy feature for people who really want to curate or target offers to their most loyal buyers. I kind of like this. Again, it's a nice feature. I wish some of the other stuff that's supposed to work just worked rather than having all this new stuff, but this is kind of a cool feature. Let me know in the comments down below if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube. Is this something that you have tried to use or would use? Again, not really a new feature. It was demoed at the last seller check-in event back in October. It has been live for a lot of people for several months, but was introduced again as part of this update. We talked about this next one. It's probably been a couple of months ago now. Introducing new conditions for pre-loved clothing. This is going into effect this week. I believe it's actually on Tuesday. Enhance the quality of your pre-loved clothing listings with our new item condition options. We're expanding our item condition options for pre-loved clothing to enhance transparency in this category and make the selling and buying experience even better. Starting February 4th, you'll need to use the new item condition options that provide you with a wider range of choices, making it easy for you to describe your item as accurately as possible. 3 new pre-owned conditions to choose from. Previously, when listing pre-loved clothing, you could only select pre-owned as the condition. Soon, like a day from now, you'll have 3 options: pre-owned excellent, pre-owned good, and pre-owned fair. The existing new with defects condition will be renamed new with imperfections for items that are unworn but with visible flaws. This, again, not exactly new, was announced in December, and we covered it here, but be aware it goes into effect on the 4th. There's also been a redesign of the business policy page. Again, this goes to dressing up the site, not necessarily adding a ton of functionality. Using business policies can save you valuable time when you're creating listings. Rather than adding payment, returns, and shipping information item by item, you can just apply your chosen settings across entire groups of listings by creating policies. This is particularly useful for sellers who manage a large number of listings and want to make comprehensive adjustments from a central place. It's why I use business policies. I've got 11,000 plus listings, and it's much easier to just have a policy. And if I want to make a change, I can edit that one policy, and it then applies automatically to however many hundreds or thousands of listings that may fall under that. So it is a very, very useful tool. It is not without its issues as well. There are times where eBay seems to automatically create new business policies for you that you don't want. So it does require some maintenance, but it is on balance a very useful tool. They have now streamlined the layout and improved functionality. It's easier than ever to manage your listings from this new business policy page. Delivery has also been simplified, and you'll be able to choose your shipping method from pre-populated lists, including the carrier's logo. So it's intuitive and quick to set up your policies. Nice change. You probably don't really edit your business policies all that often, but it is nice to see that they've made it a little easier to set up because it can be a little bit overwhelming. There were some updates, of course, in some of the other sites. If you're in the UK, the UK seller update did not include a final value fee increase for business sellers, but does include a section about the new pre-loved clothing conditions, introduces a new bulk AI listing tool to the UK market, and updates again to the business policy change. And of course, a reminder about the new buyer protection fee that we talked about last month that goes into effect also on Tuesday. eBay didn't mention it in the update, but private sellers should also be aware their payments will start being held until after delivery, starting on February 4th as well, and that the use of eBay's simple delivery managed shipping will become mandatory for eligible items sometime later in the first quarter. So some big changes in the UK, but not updated fees. So congratulations, eBay UK. You're dealing with enough, to be fair, over there. The German seller update also does not include a final value fee increase, but does include, again, the section about the pre-loved clothing, the bulk AI tool, updates to the business policies, and the recent changes to how promoted listings attribution works in Germany, which we talked about at length in last Monday's episode. So that elicited quite a bit of response as well. eBay Canada, their update will be seeing the final value fee increase across most categories. And again, it also includes the pre-loved clothing and now having access to coded coupons with information on how to comply with the new greenwashing legislation up in Canada. One thing that was not mentioned in the update, and it's probably because it changed within like 48 hours, there was an announcement by eBay Canada that store subscribers were no longer going to receive the quarterly shipping supply coupons that store subscribers receive. And the outcry was fast and furious. And in a somewhat surprising turn, eBay reversed course in less than 24 hours, restoring the shipping supply coupon to Canada store subscriptions. So congratulations, Canadians, for simultaneously essentially losing and then getting back your free shipping supplies. So that essentially is the eBay update. Not a ton of new stuff there. Some of it was just kind of reiterating things that had already been announced. The big announcement, of course, was the fee increase. A lot of feedback on that particular episode from last week. Mixed bag of comments. A lot of sellers, of course, frustrated that the fees are going up yet once again on top of all the other increases that we have faced. And a surprising number of sellers who, like myself, were kind of like, in the scheme of things, a 0.35% increase by itself is not that big a deal. In aggregate with everything else that's going on, it's started to add up to be a not inconsequential number, but it's probably not the end of the world. So let me know what you think of any of that in the comments down below, and we will move on. There's an interesting thing going on with eBay payments here in the US. There's been an update to the payment, to the policy page, to terms and conditions that indicates that fees may be held until after delivery for, quote, some sellers. So it's very unclear and it's very vague. There's always been categories of sellers, new sellers, or if you had something that was out of your normal pattern, you had a big run of sales, or you sold a $2,000 item when normally your items were $25, where there might be a temporary hold put on an individual transaction. But now, some eBay sellers in the US are reporting receiving confusing and conflicting information about sales proceeds being held until after item delivery, but an overlooked part of the latest payment terms of use update could hold the answers. This update came out on December 2nd and was effective immediately for accounts created on or after that date, or again, becomes effective on February 4th, which is Tuesday, for existing accounts. So new accounts, we're already dealing with this. Existing accounts, you'll start dealing with it potentially in a couple of days. The relevant part of this that has changed, and there's a lot of, again, this article will be linked if you want to go read all of the user questions and comments about this and what the specific cases were where this came out. But a lot of it is not particularly relevant for most sellers. At least I hope. The new version of the payment terms says specifically in some cases, and again, it gives an example. For example, if you are a new seller on eBay, funds may become available for disbursement after the items have been deemed delivered to their shipping destination as described in the help page. And there is a link to that. So that is new terminology that was not there previously. The new section now means in some situations, U.S. sellers will have their funds held until after delivery, just like support has been telling the sellers who were talking about it in this thread. To be fair, this thread goes back to November, so it's a little bit old, and I think it's just now coming to light because this is going into place for all sellers next week. The help page that section links to provides additional information about the length of the delay, which would be 2 days after delivery confirmation or 30 days after the order date if there is no confirmation. But crucially, it does not provide any more detail about to which sellers or in which situations this new policy will apply. Instead, it just uses a generic term of some sellers. And again, like I talked about last week in a particular instance and how I discuss pretty regularly, this lack of clarity, of transparency, leaves sellers asking questions and creating conspiracies about what's going on here. To be fair, eBay does. They have admitted they collect interest on these held funds, so it's in their best interest to try to hold some of these funds. They say it's for buyer safety and all that, but let's just be real. This is a profit-making opportunity for them. But the vagueness of it, not knowing specifically which sellers or in which circumstances, could leave you in, if you're in a situation like me where I'm used to getting last week's sales confirmed, everything through Sunday gets paid out and deposited to my account. The deposit processes on Tuesday and the money's in my bank on Wednesday. And my business and my personal life, because this is how I make my living, is based on that cash flow pattern. And if a significant minority or a majority of my sales suddenly go to not being paid until after delivery rather than after payment confirmation, that will really disrupt cash flow. So I'm very curious to see more details about how this actually shakes out. Not only are they going to charge us more fees, but they may be holding our funds for longer. That could really become problematic, particularly if you're on a really tight cash flow crunch. So be aware that is coming. The terms are almost identical to the UK update, except in the UK, funds for on-track delivery or those with no delivery confirmation become available after just 14 days. In the US, it's a full 30 days. It's also important to note that in the UK, the policy applies to all private sellers, so the effects will be much broader there, but in the US, it will only apply to sellers who fall into this risk assessment criteria or other limited scenarios. At least we hope they're limited scenarios, and will likely not impact the vast majority of U.S. sellers. We will see if that is actually the case. Keep an eye on this. This goes into effect again on Tuesday, on the 4th, so keep an eye on your payment accounts, and let me know in the comments down below if you notice that you're seeing payments being delayed or held in any way. Again, this article also points out that eBay acknowledged back in 2023 that they do earn interest on funds processing. So there is definitely a financial incentive for that. So there you go. Not sure how that's going to shake out, who it's going to apply to, but it is definitely something you want to keep an eye on, particularly if your business runs on a fairly tight cash flow basis. Poshmark. They had been teasing a new swipe to bid experience for Posh shows live going back to December. We talked about it back in December, and that has now, after 2 months of testing, gone live. Poshmark has officially announced swipe to bid for Posh shows to simplify bidding and prevent what they were calling accidental taps in the live stream shopping experience. Now, when you see an item you love, just swipe to place your bid. This simplifies bidding and prevents accidental taps so you can score deals stress-free. Join a show to start shopping, find an item you love, swipe to instantly place your bid, win amazing deals with just one simple motion. This very much looks like the bidding process over on Whatnot, which is very, very good, very seamless. No mistakes. There's no mistaking a swipe for a tap. So this is good news. Poshmark, again, said they had been testing this experience for Posh shows, and it is finally available broadly across Poshmark. So let me know what you think of that if you are a Posh buyer or seller. Mercari in Japan is launching auctions. The article says, could the U.S. be next? Mercari Japan launches auction offering to reduce the burden of price negotiations and help users make quick sales. Could this expand to the U.S. if successful? This is something that buyers have and sellers have asked about on numerous occasions from Mercari. Would they ever introduce auction selling in addition to the ever-present question of live selling, which, as you may recall, a few months ago when David Lee, the vice president of marketing for Mercari, was here, he said they had no plans to do live selling. I don't think we really addressed the potential for auctions at the time, but here they are in Japan, at least. The new feature was announced in a company press release saying they've landed on auctions after testing a listing without a price feature last year and overwhelming feedback from users. This was translated by Google. The press release was for this article. Mercari launched listing without a price in May of 2024 to resolve issues of pricing that troubles about 60% of users when listing and make it easier to list items. However, the listing without a price feature often takes a long time to match items, and users who have used it said, I don't know when it would sell. Even if I received a proposal, the price was not satisfactory, so lowballs. We're all used to that. In addition, many users felt burdened by the price proposal in the listing without a price feature, and we received comments from users such as, it's not much different from negotiating price in the comments section, and I don't want to negotiate the price when I buy it, showing the needs of users who want to purchase the item immediately. In a survey conducted by Mercari, about 70% of users responded that they would like to try a Mercari auction feature, revealing a need for users to sell rare or popular items at auction. The survey also revealed that users said things like, I want to get rid of the items I want to sell quickly. I want to sell popular items at a higher price than normal settings. And when it comes to purchasing, I want to purchase items at a price I'm happy with without having to make a price suggestion. So they just want to make offers essentially seamlessly without having to go through a back and forth negotiation process. Given this background, we have decided to launch the new auction feature, aiming to reduce the burden of communicating price suggestions and provide an environment where transactions can be made more smoothly on Mercari. So this will be really interesting to watch how it goes, because obviously here in the US, eBay, which built its brand on auctions, has now, by and large, probably 85 to 90% or more eliminated it. It's mostly a buy it now with offers being made. Mercari established themselves with upfront pricing, and now they're moving in the other direction. They're going to try auctions. Very interesting. How it's going to work: the seller selects auction format, lists the item. A make a bid button will be displayed for items in that format. Potential buyers can tap, place a bid, and enter their bid amount. The auction will end at 8 p.m. on the day after the first bid is placed. So that's really interesting. It is essentially a set it and forget it. You put it out there with an auction format, and 8 p.m. the day after a bid is placed, if no one else has bid, that first bid is the winner and the auction closes. Interesting. After the auction ends, a successful bidder will be notified. This is where it gets really interesting. The successful bidder will go through the normal purchase flow to complete the transaction. Sellers can switch existing fixed price listings to auctions, but will not be able to change it back, pause the auction, or edit item details once a bid has been placed. And that is true of most auction sites. Once there's a bid, you're stuck. It's sold. You're just waiting for the thing to come through. This is the interesting tidbit. The winning bidder will have 24 hours to pay. After that, anyone other than the successful bidder will be able to purchase the item, and the non-paying bidder may have their use of Mercari restricted. That is awesome. They're not messing about. If you're a non-paying bidder, you may have your use of the site restricted. That is a way to eliminate the shenanigans of people not paying. eBay has tried all of these carrots, making changes to payment processing and all that kind of stuff. And Mercari saying, you know what? No, if you didn't pay for an item you bid on, you may be essentially suspended. That's good news. There is more details in the help section on their Japan site. To be fair, there are many features on Mercari Japan that never have made it to the U.S. marketplace, so it is difficult to say whether those auctions are going to expand if they catch on. But as this article points out, given the tumultuous year that Mercari US just went through, and the fact that founder and Japan CEO Shintaro Yamada has now taken over U.S. leadership, who knows what might happen. So interesting times over at Mercari in Japan, and we'll have to wait and see how much of that filters over here to the U.S. This was an interesting one as well, and probably falls under that area that I talked about over the last few weeks of these sites essentially having run out of ideas on how to boost gross merchandise volume without squeezing sellers in some way. They're not growing their business by attracting more sellers and more merchandise, and then in turn more buyers and generating more sales. They're squeezing ever more money out of the existing pie. And this change at Etsy looks like another example of that. Etsy Shipping and Handling Shuffle. The article is headlined, Desperate Bid for Gross Merchandise Sales Bump. Etsy is removing the option for sellers who use calculated shipping to add handling and packaging costs to the shipping price. So if you had calculated ground advantage shipping, you could, at the time, add a handling and service fee to that was paid to you as part of the purchase. That is going away. Etsy claims it will improve the buyer experience while conveniently leaving out the fact that it will also likely boost an important financial metric for the company with no extra sales needed. This goes into effect on March 3rd of this year and will automatically remove handling and packaging fees from calculated shipping prices at that time. So if you have listings on Etsy where you have added handling and packaging fees to your shipping policies, know that on March 3rd, those are automatically going to be removed. And if you have calculated that into your profit, you're going to want to take a look at those listings and decide what you want to do. The actual terms of the update, which apparently went out in a message, starting March 3rd, we're removing the option to charge handling and packaging fees. If you use calculated shipping, you won't be able to add these fees as part of your shipping prices. To account for these costs, consider moving them into your listing prices while keeping the total price the same. This keeps the profit you make on your item the same while helping better meet buyer expectations. Now, to be fair to Etsy, this is in line with their whole push to reduce shipping charges. They put out the results of a survey or a study that they supposedly did last fall that indicated, and you've probably seen it in numerous ways over on Etsy, that when shipping prices began to exceed $6 for an item, that buyers were being put off by that. So again, we'll use the example of ground advantage. You have an item that was going to ship for $4.50, and you added $3 of handling and packaging fees. Now that shipping charge appeared as $7.50, and Etsy is saying that was deterring buyers. Now, my personal feeling on that, having gone away from the free shipping model over on eBay, is that buyers are still by and large actually buying by the total shipping price. So this change may not be that big a deal. If your item was $25 with shipping and included that shipping charge, and now you just move that $3 fee that I just mentioned into the price of the item, maybe it's all good. I don't know, but it definitely is in keeping with their goal to really focus on driving down shipping cost rather than total cost, which I'm not sure is right, but it's definitely in line with what they've been doing. These changes, importantly, only apply to sellers who use calculated shipping. Handling and packaging fees will be removed automatically, so you won't need to remove them yourself. Very nice of them. Review your pricing strategy on your shipping profiles that have handling and packaging fees in advance of the change. The email notice that sellers received leaned heavily on the idea that the change is being made because buyers, again, are averse to seeing high shipping prices, and having handling and packaging fees added could discourage shoppers from completing purchases. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. My personal experience has been, if again, more so maybe on eBay, where I have a lot more transaction volume to go off of, charging shipping, but making sure that my total gross selling price, including the shipping, is competitive with someone who's selling the exact same item but doing free shipping, has not negatively impacted my sales. I made that change a couple of years ago and did not notice any decrease in my business by charging shipping. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. It would seem to contradict their own statement in the policy page about the change, which encouraged sellers to consider moving them into your listing prices while keeping total prices the same. If the total remains the same, the article says, the impact on whether or not buyers make a purchase will likely be barely noticeable, which is my point. Unless eBay believes, Liz says, that customers are too stupid to be making purchasing decisions based on the total price, in which case she suggests that they have completely missed the basic psychological lessons of every e-commerce operation has learned about free shipping in the last 2 decades. So what's really behind this? Some in the seller subreddit over on Etsy have suggested that the company could be looking to mitigate costs they have to cover under their new Etsy Insider Buyer Loyalty Program. You remember we talked about that a couple of months ago. One writer said, I wonder if this has to do with Etsy Insider, since they're now covering the shipping costs for those purchases. I just had an insider order an item from me, then a day later, order again. 2 shipping costs Etsy has to pay for. If you're including handling and packaging costs, I assume Etsy must be paying those as well, because the shipping is free. And this packaging and a service fee that you have added to your shipping is on the shipping line on Etsy. So Etsy's paying these. The fee that they're charging customers for being part of this insider program does not begin to cover the cost of a lot of shipping. So this could be one of the reasons that they're looking at this. I wonder if they're also doing this so they can save, again, on shipping when they reimburse customers for those fees when they're an insider. I bet they didn't care about what we charged to cover our packaging until they had to start paying the higher shipping fees due to those fees we can price and have. I hate how they spin it as a way to help the sellers when it's in fact a way to help themselves. Absolutely. There were several comments last week on the multiple episodes about the goings on over at eBay that said the same thing. Tired of the word salad, tired of trying to bill these things as beneficial to sellers when they are not. Liz points out it's certainly a plausible theory and could be one contributing factor, but it's also important to note that this simple change will allow Etsy to boost a very important metric in their financial reports to investors: gross merchandise sales, without having to actually do anything to increase sales. And of course, that comes in when you as a seller move, again, my hypothetical $3 shipping and my $3 handling fee into the price of the item. Etsy defines their gross merchandise sales in their quarterly and year-end reports as the dollar value of items sold in our marketplaces, excluding shipping fees and the net of refunds within that applicable period. So if you move that, again, hypothetical $3 fee from shipping, which Etsy has historically not included in their gross merchandise sales, into the price of the item, suddenly, without warning, on every transaction that has that hypothetical fee in it, Etsy is generating more gross merchandise volume. Packaging and handling fees added into shipping price are currently not counted, but they will be if you move that amount to still cover your costs and make the same amount of profit. That, again, goes to what I said at the introduction of this segment. It is a way to, from a fee standpoint, I don't know that it improves their fee situation any, but it certainly would potentially make them more attractive to investors because it will show, at least temporarily, a gross merchandise increase. That increase, again, in theory, would only last a quarter. You'd see one bump when everybody made the change, and then it will just flatline again. So I don't know that this is a long-term solution, which is why I say repeatedly, they appear to have no good long-term plans to increase GMV. They're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what happens to stick. Etsy seller and e-commerce consultant Cindy Baldassi pointed out, sellers with many listings to change will likely start editing their prices early to avoid being caught out when the change happens, which may allow Etsy to start to see that bump even before March 3rd. If you're a seller and you do that now in February, that thing will roll out, obviously, for Etsy's benefit more quickly. It would have been nice, I guess. Again, there should have been maybe potentially an opt-in to this, where Etsy would have set some way up for you to do, like Mercari did when they made their fee change, a bulk price change where you could integrate and move anything that was on that business policy that had a handling fee on it and automatically update those prices. They're not doing that. They're automatically removing that fee, but they're not then automatically adding it to your selling price. You have to do that manually. So if you've got a lot of listings, you've got to look at everything that's in that policy and then consider whether or not you're going to make those edits. That is going to be quite a bit of work for bigger sellers over on Etsy. I don't use handling charges on any of mine, so this isn't going to affect me, but it is a interesting move. Liz points out it is a desperate move that will muddy year over year gross merchandise sales. As I said, you're going to have this one-time bump of as sellers make that move, pricing and sales for that short window of time are going to increase because those fees are now registered as gross merchandise sales. But that's only a one-time bump. After that, those sales will all have that, and next year they'll be up against that number, and they won't show any increase. So I don't know. I'm not sold on this. This should raise alarm bells for Etsy investors. If CEO Josh Silverman is resorting to the tactics to goose numbers, does not bode well for the company's future ability to grow gross merchandise sales authentically and increase sales on the platform. Let me know again in the comments what you think about that particular situation. If you used handling charges on Etsy, how are you going to handle the change? And just broadly what you think, again, about these companies who continue to just squeeze sellers in new and unusual ways. Last bit of news for this week, Whatnot is looking to sellers to recruit customer service stars. I talked a little bit about this in my Whatnot show on Friday. They just announced this late last week, fresh off a new funding round and explosive growth in 2024, both of which we have talked about on this show. Live stream shopping platform Whatnot is investing in expanding their support teams in 2025 with an emphasis on looking to their existing pool of sellers to find breakout customer service stars. So this is really interesting. Novel recruiting strategy detailed in a recent company blog post encouraging sellers to apply for open support positions and featuring several sellers who have joined the company as employees, revealing Whatnot requires all employees to, interestingly, both buy and sell on the platform themselves. So I'm not sure how I feel about the buy side of that, but I do like the idea that they're recruiting actual users of the platform. It's one of the constant complaints that a lot of us have about these services is that the people that are making some of the decisions are not regular users of the service. They may be tech people, they may be finance people, and they're making decisions and they're doing things that look good from those perspectives, but are not necessarily the best for users of the site, be they buyers or sellers. So I think it's a kudos to Whatnot for recognizing that bringing actual users of the site on board into this service role has actual benefits for both them and for their users. So good on them. Our first and most important value at Whatnot, they say, is always listening to customers. It's at the heart of everything we do, from the products we build to the policies we create to the categories we launch. This focus on being customer first has guided us since day one. It's shaped how we've grown and adapted to bring you the best experience. Our commitment to being user first is reflected in our hiring and employee policies. Not only do we require all employees both buy and sell on Whatnot, several of our full-time employees started their Whatnot journey as sellers themselves. These employees exist across many of our teams and have a unique perspective on what sellers need on our platform. Starting from their first day as a seller and eventually growing their businesses, they bring insights and actions to improve the overall platform experience. One area where we've seen impact is bringing on sellers to Whatnot as customer support agents, which are some of the best examples of great, fast service. By bringing their own experience as a seller on Whatnot, they're able to empathize with sellers and their questions on a different level. We're excited to share that we're expanding the team in 2025 by opening a number of new seller support agent roles specifically geared toward existing sellers on Whatnot. These sellers turned support agents are encouraged to keep their Whatnot businesses going as well, of course, because they want these people to continue to buy and sell on the platform so they can still bring that kind of experience to the role, but making the offer particularly enticing for those who want to continue building their business while having the stability of a regular paycheck and direct impact on the development of the platform. Unlike at eBay's now abandoned experts program, which sought to leverage seasoned sellers for customer service tasks, this isn't some third-party managed piecemeal gig economy deal. Whatnot is offering apparently real full-time jobs with the company, including benefits and equity. There's a chart here that explains what the compensation is. Full-time hourly U.S.-based applicants will get anywhere from $24.04 an hour to $28.85 an hour, plus benefits, plus equity in the company. So some kind of stock option program. That's pretty good. Again, it's for full-time. So if you're a full-time reseller, you would have to make some considerations about how you would want to handle that if you took a role like this. But it's really a nice little package. Flexible time off policy, holiday pay, company-wide holidays, health insurance options, which include medical, dental, and vision, work from home support, a home office setup allowance, monthly allowance for cell phone and internet, care benefits, including a monthly allowance on both food and wellness, annual allowance towards childcare, lifetime benefit for family planning, such as adoption or fertility expenses, retirement planning, including 401k, monthly allowance to the dog food, the app. I don't know what that even is. Parental leave, 16 weeks of parental leave, plus 1 month gradual return to work as company leave allowances run concurrent with our country leave requirements. Really interesting offer. Let me know if that's something that you would consider if you're a seller on Whatnot. Would you, if you're a full-time reseller, would you consider giving up that gig to work in a customer environment for Whatnot? Really interesting, and kudos to them again for looking toward sellers to kind of populate the customer service ranks, which would obviously be able to communicate better with sellers because they're going to understand the drama that we occasionally go through as sellers. Really fascinating stuff. Let me know, as always, in the comments down below what you thought of any of this. If you got something out of this episode, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not currently a follower of the podcast or a subscriber to the YouTube channel, please consider doing that as well. Again, 2 Whatnot shows for me this week. Tuesday, we've got vintage fiction and a lot of mystery, a lot of Sherlock Holmes in that one. And then Friday night, science fiction and fantasy. Both of those shows start at 7 p.m. We will be here again on Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern for a little live session where we can chat about this and whatever else you might have on your mind about the wonderful world of reselling. Again, as always, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.